Hi, everybody. How are you? It's great to be back here at the Stratosphere Lounge, episode 46, coming to you from Full On Darkness here in Los Angeles, California at, 6 o'clock, a little bit after, and it's blackout with the daylight savings time switch. Oh, man, I don't know. I don't like it. I never did. I like, it just hits so hard, and it just, next thing you know, it's 7 o'clock at night, feels like 11. But that's the way it is. So it's good to see everybody, and it's good to be here. And we got another set of great questions for Stratosphere Lounge episode 46. And another, week of watching the country and everything we love just slowly kind of unwind and deteriorate in front of our very eyes. But I think the only thing you can do in a case like that is just decide whether you're going to get off the train or soldier on. And I think maybe what we'll do next time is we'll do like a theme show on, actual solutions, real things that we can do right today in the present day to kind of slow this stuff down and just stop these horrible control freaks. I have some actual thoughts about that. Before we get into the show, I'm going to just say real quick, I'm going to start doing a new set of firewalls. Going to shoot a bunch of them on Monday. I hope to shoot 3 of them. And took a look at the metrics, at the analytics on YouTube, and they're all really saying the same thing. They're all saying something interesting. Excuse me a second. Chair's just a little bit low. That's a little better. What they're saying is that depending on the video, the bulk of people, the large number, 87% of people, watch between 3 and 4 minutes, and then it just falls off after that, just really falls off. So what I'm going to try and do is resist the temptation to do these big, long, highly intricate things. I guess maybe I'll save those for afterburners. But what I do think is that what we probably need to do is do them shorter and quicker and cleaner. And I'm going to make the firewalls. I'm going to switch them around a little bit, make them look a little more like the pitch video on the website with a kind of silver outfit. It just looks really cool and clean. So, going to give those firewalls a brand new look, part of the new BillWhittle.com thing, and hopefully going to shoot. We'll shoot some of them on Tuesday of next week. I hope to have 3 or 4 of them done. Try and break these things down into single ideas that are a little more palatable. I'm going to try and put together a series too with these firewalls. We obviously the first 7 firewalls we did were called What We Believe, and I've been giving a lot of thought to figuring out how to fight the liberal message, the progressive message, how we actually do that, or kind of underground techniques and messaging techniques we can use to really go and start hitting these people back and hit them in where they live. Now, I'll just say one more thing before we get into the questions. I just read a 3-part biography of Winston Churchill, and it's 2-3 pages, 3,000 pages per volume, and I read all 3 volumes. Read all 3 volumes 3 times, and I really felt like I got a really good, strong understanding of this tremendously written set of books by William Manchester called The Last Lion, and they're fantastic. And then finally, after reading it, I decided, it's time for me to read Mein Kampf. I just have to. I've heard it was impenetrable, and it is. It's really difficult. It's not a easy read. He just dictated it. It's the ego. It's the dictation of an egotist surrounded by a psychopath. So it simply is just stream of consciousness stuff. And nevertheless, it's an extremely important thing to read. And the most important thing about reading Mein Kampf is we do such a disservice to ourselves and such a disservice to history by making Adolf Hitler to be a frothing at the mouth maniac. By doing that, we greatly increase the chances of more Adolf Hitlers. The amount of rage and narcissism and vileness and just sheer venality comes through on almost every sentence he writes. But the fact of the matter is, politically, he was an absolute genius, just an absolute genius in terms of the politics of how people think, how masses of people think, about changing people's minds, about taking an idea and making it work on the streets, and then making it work in the party, then making it work in the state. And I don't suppose I have to say I'm, needless to say, 100% opposed to everything that he stood for. but his mechanism, his understanding of the mechanism of how political parties fight each other is absolutely illuminating and spot on. And one of the things that I think is really important to understand in terms of reading what he understood about politics is something he did very beginning, and he took, he basically, when he was designing the Nazi flag, he looked at all kinds of different colors. The colors of Germany, of Imperial Germany, have been black and white, and he said black doesn't draw any attention. White is the color of surrender. Blue is very appealing, but it's also a calming thing. We want something that's going to get people excited, something that's going to just leap at them from down the street. But what he really said was, he said, we want to take, they're fighting Marxism, right? The Nazis are fighting Marxism. You got one flavor of socialist at war with the other one. And what he basically said was, we want to steal their flag. We're going to take their color. They have red flags. We're going to have red flags. We're going to take their color because it's the most exciting color. It's the most visually interesting color. But we're going to take their color. That's going to unnerve them. It's going to unnerve them quite a lot. And that idea, I'm going to turn into a firewall on its own. Taking their flag. What does that mean for us? It means really, ultimately, when you get down to what the flag of the liberals is compassion and caring. We need to take their flag. We need to take that color from them. Our flags have to be that color. They have to be the color of concern for people, and they have to be the color of a new philosophy, which is really the old philosophy. There's nothing new. It's not like, Whittleism or anything, or, there is an Obamaism. It's just fundamental free market principles, but it's got to be something that is in the future. It's got to be something new and something attractive and something coming. It's a worldview, and I don't know. Anyway, I'm just chewing on some of these ideas. They're really important ideas. It's really depressing on some degree to read what Hitler says in Mein Kampf in terms of succeeding, especially succeeding against Marxism, against the collectives, against the kind of people we're fighting today. Because what he basically said was that bourgeois political parties, like the Republican Party, let's say, will always lose to these other people because, number one, they have a dynamic new worldview which they passionately believe in, and it's something that appeals to the popular imagination. But really what he said was these bourgeois political parties that he was facing at the time, the various parties of the Weimar Republic and so on, he said these people don't even have the courage to sign their name to a document. They're never going to win out on a street battle. Hitler understood that he had to have a group of guys that would crack some heads, not to crack other people's heads, but people came to his meeting and would try to disrupt the Nazi meetings. And so he had to have people to defend himself so that they could get the message out. And that's really important. This idea that are you ready to take this message of freedom to the streets? Really, are you going to do it? How willing are you ready to fight for it is really what he said. And he said if you see people on the streets who are ready to fight and get hurt and die for an idea, then the spectators in the streets and the masses, the large numbers of people that really just go where the enthusiasm is, he said you really just need to show that you're ready to go and fight and die for this. And if you're not, then people know it. And that gave me a lot to think about. So it's very difficult thing to read Mein Kampf, because on one hand, you have such amazing political insight, and on the other hand, you have such a vile conclusion to it. Centralized power, ruthlessness, brutality. I'm reading it because I need to know what to defend against. But anyway, something that's on my mind and something I'm trying to come up, with a counter proposal for, something in terms of what would the street fight look like to recover these ideas. And when I say the street fight, I mean the street fight of ideas. No one's getting their heads clubbed over in meetings anymore. They used to just throw beer mugs in these giant beer cellars. So we got to be prepared to fight these people like we mean it. And I'm tired of getting kicked, in the groin by people while I fight them with Marquis of Queensberry's rules. No one does that. The Marines don't do that. Special Forces guys don't go up there. You want to win this fight for freedom? You prepared to fight for it, or you prepared to get, you're going to prepare to get hurt for it? I don't know. it's something to think about. So anyway, just letting you know that just some of the stuff is percolating upstairs, and we'll hopefully see some of that beginning next week or so. Some of these solutions to this god-awful assault and these evil, evil, evil people. And you can't be evil to fight them, but you gotta fight them like they're fighting you, and it's a difficult damn thing to do. Anyway, moving on here, so let's get going. So we're looking at the top-rated questions for Stratosphere Lounge, episode 46, and the top-rated question is from Jeff Blodgett, who writes, many of us are eagerly awaiting the day when we can walk up to an unassuming door, speak a password, and enter a place where the music is fine, the lights are always low, the drinks are always dry. Who would be your choice to headline the grand opening of this dreamland, and what can we do as your loyal fans to make the Stratosphere Lounge a reality? Well, thank you very much for that, Jeff. That's a kind thought. I'll answer the headliner first, then I'll answer what we can do about it. If I could have anybody on that show for the opener, who would I have? That's a really excellent question. Jon Stewart, maybe. That might be interesting. Somebody like in the enemy camp like that, or somebody who's a really great vocal, defender of our ideas. Mark Levin would be very high on my list of people I'd like to get on that opener, because he's unashamed. Rush Limbaugh would be the top guest, obviously. I think that'd be probably the best you could get. But somebody like that, somebody who knew how to make a splash, somebody who was interesting to listen to, and somebody who either was going to come out with your principles thundering out of lightning bolts, or somebody with the other principles that you could at least start taking a shot back and fighting back. We don't ever fight back. So those would be interesting names for the opening show. But the key part of the question is, what can we do as your loyal fans to make the Stratosphere Lounge a reality? First of all, thanks for the loyal fans part. But I don't consider this my show, and I never did, and I hope I never do. I consider this to be our show. And the honest answer, Jeff, I'll tell you, is something I'm not very comfortable with. And that is become a subscriber. And the reason I'm not comfortable with it is something I'm going to have to get over pretty quick. And I'm going to tell you how I'm trying to get over it and why I'm not comfortable with it. I've always been as honest as I can be on this show, and take questions as they come. So let me explain this as best I possibly can here. I have a real problem asking people for help in general, and I have a real problem asking people for financial help in particular. And I suppose that's something we all share as conservatives, is a sort of a sense of unwillingness to ask for help or to ask for money. It makes me feel part of it seems unseemly to me. But this is something I just have to change my way of thinking about, because the way to make the Stratosphere Lounge a reality in terms of making it a TV show that happens every night is through the subscriber base. If we had 3,000 or 4,000, certainly if we had 5,000 subscribers, we could afford to do the show on a nightly basis and put it on the web and put it on TV, actually. We could afford to just produce it. There are versions of the final show that's shorter than that we can do with considerably fewer members. Needless to say, I feel like the subscription is worth it. I've been working very hard not only to update the site daily, but to update it in ways that are different than the regular political content. What I try to do with things like the Singularity is I kind of try to present some of the things that are sort of the background material that I use, just the things that are interesting to me, things that Powers of 10, for example, we talked about last week on Stratosphere Lounge about astronomy, and now I put up the Powers of 10 links, so that's just something that's been with me for 40 years of perspective. There's some stuff on the 10th dimension that I'm going to put up there. And so I'm really just trying to put out a sort of a general philosophical academy of what I use to kind of come to these ideas. But I certainly believe in the site, and I certainly believe in the value of the subscription. I just have a hard time going out and asking for people to sign up and asking people for help, and I need to get over it. And I need to get over it because it's not like this money goes to me. This is what we need. We need the resources to get this message out. We need the resources to do new shows, and we need the resources to get them promoted and bought. So the answer to the Stratosphere Lounge question is, we need a certain number of subscribers. Right now we need a certain number of subscribers to make sure we can keep the doors open forever, for the foreseeable future. So And that's really it, folks. We are trying to recruit an army to recover the country and recover the nation, recover the ideas of the nation. And like the rest of you conservatives out there, I feel on some fundamental molecular level that if I'm not capable of doing this on my own, then there's something wrong with me, that somehow I've failed the thing. But there is no, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. There's no way I have the resources to do this. I'm not one of the Koch brothers who are fine people and put their money in a lot of things. I need the resources. So if you've been considering it and you can do it, it would mean a lot to me, and it would mean a lot to the rest of us, I think, to help this out, because I do see this as a team. So I think probably the way I'm starting to learn to think about it is, rather than a guy walking around with his hat in his hand saying, hey, can you help me out here? Can you help a fella out? Which is repugnant to me. I think really what I'm starting to look at here is to say, you know, I'm going on this mission. I would never ask people to go someplace I wouldn't go. I would never send people into a fight that I wasn't ready to go over the top on first. And I'm going on this mission. And the more people we have, then the more we can do. And it's really just that simple. The more people that get on, that get behind me in this fight in terms of going over the top, the more likely we are to win. And I want to win. I want to win more than I want to, you know, to get over this problem. So that's what we need to do. We need to get as many subscribers as we possibly can. If you can afford to do it, I would really appreciate it. And if you can't, believe me, if there's one person on the earth who understands that, I'm the guy. You know, right now, if we took the number of people who see the Stratosphere Lounge, just the number of people who watch it as an average on YouTube, somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000, if every single one of those people became subscribers, we'd have the means to do that television show on a nightly basis and a lot more. So we're not looking at gigantic numbers of people. But that's what we need, Jeff. We need subscribers. We just had 40,000 views, 40,000 likes on Facebook, and I'm wondering if people can double that. I'm wondering if people can say, hey, this guy's, you know, getting some interesting message out there. Just go like his page, because if you like the page, that helps our numbers. It helps our views. It turns into Facebook likes, turn into you know, views on videos, all that stuff. So that's actually the question, Jeff. That's why it took so long setting up the website and worked so hard to get it up and looking as nice as I could, and why I keep trying to do everything I can every day, including the weekends, to keep it updated. Because that is the monetary machine. That subscription goes a long way. And I think we have to ask ourselves, in terms of what other things we spend our money on, in terms of bang for the buck. I don't know. I don't think that, I think the Romney campaign had $1 billion. It's $1 billion. And we could have done a lot with $1 billion. We could have won that election with $1 billion. And we could have won the election with $1 billion and probably gone to the moon as well. So that's what we need, guys. We need subscribers, and I'm going to keep hammering that point, because that's basically what we need. But again, it's an army. It's a group of people together that can do something that one person alone can't do. And it doesn't matter how much that guy may want to go out there by himself and take that hill. Sometimes you need an army to take a hill, and we got a lot of hills to take and not a lot of time left to do it. So anybody that can sign up, great. If you can send somebody there to take a look at the page, I think we've got enough history on the web page now and enough stuff in the content channels to show that it's a going concern. It's going to stay a concern. So, and if you were a Declaration of Entertainment member and you haven't signed up yet, we'd like to have you back too. So that's that for that one, Jeff. Thanks for the question, because I'll tell you what, I love every time that Petula Clark music starts. I just love it. I just feel great, and it makes me happy, and especially at the very, very end, that ba 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 da da. I'm good. I'm ready to go. So, so that's from Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. That was a top-rated question today. Number 2 was from Rosemarie Moscarelli, who says, what combination, this is a great question, what combination of virtues do you think voters at large would find irresistible in a candidate for president? Christie appears to have it for New Jersey. Should that scare us if he runs in 2016? Yes, it should scare us quite badly, I think. I just want to make sure I don't have anything coming up that's going to contradict or double step on what I'm about to say here. Okay. I was having a talk with Jeremy about this earlier today, about Christie winning, and he's going to be the people that the establishment Republicans are going to try and foist on us in 2016 to run against Hillary Clinton. And it comes back to the new Coke argument, right? What's the argument here? Is the argument saying that, well, gee, if we run Chris Christie, we'll pick up Democrats? You're not going to pick up Democrats against Hillary Clinton. You're not going to pick up anybody. All you're going to do is you're going to guarantee that your own team doesn't show up. It's like your quarterback. It's like your quarterback throwing interceptions all day because you want the other guys to come over to your team. It doesn't matter. They're not going to come over to our team. Throwing interceptions to their receivers is not going to make some of them drop their jerseys and come over to their team because you're throwing them the ball so much. They want to intercept the ball. They want us to lose. They want us to lose, and they want us to lose, and they want us to lose. It's not like you can be nice to them by pampering them or saying, we're kind of like you here. Here, I'm going to throw a ball right at you, run it back in for a touchdown. See how much we like you? No. You got to throw the ball to our receivers. You got to get more points than them. Chris Christie can't compete against Hillary Clinton. What's he going to do? Is he going to be more in favor of abortion than her? Is he going to be in favor of more handouts than her? Why doesn't he just run for her vice president and put an end to it? The person that can win this election coming up, the next one and the last one and the one before that, is the person that can get in front of the American people and do what I said a few moments ago, that the genius that Adolf Hitler had in terms of his ability to understand how one worldview replaces the other. The first thing you have to do is you have to steal their flag. You're going to have to steal their flag. What's their flag? Their flag is compassion. They're compassion. They're compassion. We're the mean people. They're the nice people. We're the good people. They're the good people. We're the bad people. No, we got to steal the flag. You got to steal that red flag. And their red flag is we're the ones that care. We have to get out there and show that we're the ones that care. We have to go and show people that caring about people means doing the right thing by them, not keeping them on a plantation as slaves forever. You get me in front of these people and they'll say, well, the Democratic Party is the largest holder of slaves in history. They have 30 million slaves now, these Democrats. How dare you say that? How dare you say that? How dare you? How dare you criticize me for saying it when we both know it's true? How dare you hold these people as slaves to the government for 3 generations now? How dare you? How dare you? You take the moral high ground and you do it. Boom. It's just that simple. You just do it. Just take the moral high ground from them and you run with it. You steal their flag and see how they like it. They won't know what to do. Everything we do, every rational, logical plan we have, every rational argument, every single possible historical case for our actions in the past, and every single plank of conservatism has to be sold to the American people as the compassionate thing to do for other people. It is the good thing for them to do. It's the morally correct. It's the economically correct. It's the spiritually correct. It's the right thing to do to other people. It's done out of compassion. It's done out of wanting everybody to live this way. It's done out of the history of what works and what doesn't. It's what happens. You have to just steal their flag and not let them have this moral high ground and not have them be the good guys and not have us be the bad guys. And when somebody says, how can you dare say, how dare you say that the Democratic Party holds these people as slaves after all we've done for them? All you've done for them? What have you done for them? What have you done for Black America? You've given them a 40% unemployment rate for teenagers. You've basically destroyed their families. You've utterly destroyed their families. You've taken away the fundamental human spark that makes us different from herd animals. You've taken away their self-reliance, their independence, and their self-respect. That's what you've done. That's what your policies have done. Lyndon Johnson said he's going to have these N-words voting for us for 200 years. That's exactly what you did. You stole them. You stole their independence, and you keep them on a plantation, and you harvest votes from them once every 2 years. You are miserable, low-life, disgusting people who would rather have people suffer for their entire lives so long as you can get their vote. Period. What do you mean, how dare I? How dare you? We're talking about liberating these people. Again. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about liberating people from their dependency on you. You guys are drug addicts. You cocaine sellers. You're crack dealers is what you are. You give people something to shoot up their arm, and then they just sit there in a coma. And as long as they give you their bales of votes every 2 years, you're just as happy as you can be. Miserable lowlifes. Horrible people. Horrible. And you're doing it for the worst reasons of all. You're doing it for personal political power and gain because you understand that you people cannot make it out there in the business world. You cannot compete against people who can do things better than you. And so you use the law and the coercive power of the government and their guns to get your way because you could never, ever, ever, ever do this out in the world of free choice. Not in a million years. You couldn't be successful businessmen. You couldn't be successful anything. You can't persuade people that your idea is the best, so you have to legislate it. You have to make it law. You have to basically criminalize and demonize the people who disagree with you because you're so bad at everything you do. That's how you win. So, no. You got Chris Christie be the worst thing that happened to us. I will campaign against him. I will. I think Chris Christie gave Barack Obama the election. I think Christie putting his arm around him 2 days before the vote and saying, what an awesome job this president is doing of handling this storm crisis. Thanks, Chris. Thanks a lot. I'll campaign against him. I will. I will vote for Hillary. If it comes down to Hillary Clinton and Chris Christie, and I had to cast a vote, and I had to cast a vote for one of them, I'd vote for Hillary Clinton. If I'm going to have a patronizing, uptight, lunatic, narcissist, control freak telling me what to do, then I'd rather it be one of theirs. I'd rather it be one of theirs. Honestly, leave us alone. And if somebody, if I'm arguing healthcare with Hillary Clinton in 2016 up on a platform somewhere, and Hillary Clinton says, here's my plan for healthcare. What's your plan for healthcare? My plan for healthcare, Madam Clinton, is to let people make up their own minds. I happen to think that a person can run their household better than Hillary Clinton can run their household. I think I run my household better than Hillary Clinton runs my household, and I think most people out there in the country think they can do a better job of running their own families and their own lives and their own shopping lists than you can. Why don't you tell me what's wrong with you emotionally? Emotionally, what's wrong with you that makes you feel that you can make better decisions for other people's lives than those people? Do you actually genuinely think you're that much smarter and better than them? Can you possibly be that full of ego, honestly, to believe that you know what's better for somebody else's family than they do? My God, woman. Seriously? You're running in a democracy, in a republic? Why don't you simply proclaim yourself empress? That's the job you want, obviously. You want to be able to just dictate for other people. My plan for the American people is to get as many obstacles to them making their own free choices out of the way as we possibly can. You want a health care plan? Shop around. My job is to make sure that there's nothing in the way of people offering you the lowest possible prices for that health care. That's it. That's all. My job is to make sure that no one's using the law to artificially keep up prices, because if everybody is competing to get you the best care for the lowest price, then you are going to get the best care for the lowest price. And I'm not running to tell you how to do it, but she is. I'm not running to tell you what decisions to make, but she is. I'm not running to tell you what you're going to have to buy and not buy, but she is. My philosophy is you're a smart, intelligent person and you're free. And you have a right to be told nothing. You don't work for me. I'm not your boss. I work for you. I do what you say. You don't have to listen to me. I don't have to listen to her. She's not my boss. Hillary Clinton doesn't boss. She's got no authority over me. And she doesn't have any authority over you either. Why don't you just leave people alone and give them as many choices as they can? I'm pro-choice, Mrs. Clinton. I'm in favor of Americans making as many choices as they possibly could have. Why won't you leave people alone? I think we should be left alone. Oh, you're pro-choice, are you? What's your position on abortion? My position on abortion is that those babies ought to be left alone too. I think those children that are trying to come into this world need to be left alone. That's my opinion. There you go. I'm the pro-choice candidate. I think those kids should have a choice about whether they enter the world or not either. But we can disagree about that. My idea is coercion is bad and coercion is evil. So I don't want to coerce anybody into anything. I think everybody should be able to make up their own minds about what they want to believe. And the reason that Hillary Clinton and the rest of the Democratic Party are so dead set against this idea is because every time people have a free choice, they always choose the right thing. They always choose the smart thing. They choose the best thing for themselves. And every single time they do it, it means that those people are out of a job. They're out of a job. I don't want this job. I had a good job. I was making a ton of money. I was happy as I could be. I'm only here because there's no one else who seems to be able to do this job as well as I can. And believe me, if I did find somebody who's better at this job than I will, I'd be out of here tomorrow. If you think this is fun to stand here and listen to people gassing on and on and on and on and on and on about how we're going to do this for you and how we're going to do that for you and we're going to tell you how to do this and we're going to tell you how to do that, no. I want to be left alone. I want to go barbecue. I want to have some fun. But no, now I have to stand up here to try and defend myself against you because, frankly, Madam Clinton, I've realized that the only way I can defend myself against you telling me what to do is for me to run for president. That's the only way. That's all I've got left. You won't leave me alone. You won't leave anybody alone. We try to go someplace else, you follow us. We try to take our kids out of your schools and your indoctrination centers. Guess what? You put the indoctrination to follow us. I've come to realize, ma'am, that the only way that I can stop you from messing up my personal life is for me to run for president of the United States. You think about the level of absurdity of that? Can you realize how silly and absurd and ultimately disgraceful that is? in a country founded on the idea of freedom, the only way for people to be left free now is for them to run for president against the likes of you? Wow. Man alive. I know you skateboarders out there think that she's the cool one because she's a Democrat and she's a woman and all that other stuff, but there's one person here who's going to tell you what kind of helmet you can wear and how steep that grade on your slope is going to be, and there's going to be one person who's going to tell you that you're going to have insurance before you get into that double tube, and then people are going to tell you all these other things, and it's not me, I don't care. I want you to go out and have fun. If you get hurt, then you're going to have to take care of your own hospital bills, but I don't care. But she does. She's going to tell you exactly how many helmets you have to wear. And if you think it's just one helmet, you're wrong. You're going to have to wear 13 or 14 helmets, and you're going to have to be certified, and they're all going to have to come up to standards, and OSHA is going to be involved. There's going to be slopes. There's going to be rules. They're going to put a GPS tracker in your skateboard. They're going to tax you by the number of awesome air grabs that you get, because that's what they do. That's what they do. They can't leave anything alone. There's something wrong with them. They're crazy. So, no, I'm not in favor of Christie. Moving on, Fernando Pombeiro says, "Hey, Bill, can you focus on the Orwellian doublespeak and equivocation being used by the administration around the Affordable Care Act rollout? Can you then take that thesis and generalize it around the leftist propaganda machine, i.e. abortion as a woman's health issue?" Yeah, I guess I can. Let's start with the Orwellian doublespeak about the rollout. Let me just answer one question here. I see a question in the comment stream here. John Condon says, "You make a great president too, Bill, but the press will bork you or give you the Palin, we'll just say the Palin treatment." Let me tell you something. I'm not going to get borked, and I'm not going to be Palinized. Sarah Palin was Palinized because they made her out to be stupid. They're going to have a tougher time with that on me. Look, there's only three flavors of Republicans as far as the left is concerned, right? You're either too old, you're too stupid, or you're too mean, right? And if you look at all of our candidates, you can find out how they put them into either one or two or all three of those boxes. Sarah Palin is too stupid, and she shoots wolves from airplanes, so she's also too mean. John McCain is too old and too mean. Mitt Romney is not too stupid. You can't make that case against him, but you can make him too mean. That's why Romney was actually a relatively good candidate, you know? He wasn't too old, and he wasn't too stupid, but so you have to, where do you go from there, right, if you're the left? You got to go with mean. He hates women. He's shipping lady parts over to China in binders. So, yeah. So, you're going to either be too stupid, too old, or too mean. Now, they're not going to get me on the stupid, and they're not going to get me on the old. They're going to try to get me on the mean, but they're not going to get me on the mean, because that's what I'm talking about at the beginning. This is what I learned from that swell guy Adolf Hitler, who understood human nature and more than anything understood how to fight against other Marxists and other control freaks. Steal their flag. I'm going to steal their flag. I'm going to steal their flag because it's not their flag, it's our flag. Our policies are the ones that are the best for people. We're happier, we make more money. We're happier, we're smarter, we make more money. We're connected to reality. It works. Our idea works. Our idea is sustainable. Freedom is sustainable. Frugality is sustainable. Slavery is sustainable, but most people don't want it. And certainly their economics are going to fail. And when they fail, the world is over. So, I'm not afraid of them, and I'm not afraid of their charges. I know how to refute their charges. You want to call me a racist? Let's have a conversation about race. You want to have a conversation about race? Let's do it. Let's talk about the difference between Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois. Do you want to have that conversation? I'll bet you don't. I'll bet you don't. You're not going to want that conversation. So, anyway, look, the doublespeak about the Affordable Care Act rollout. Well, first of all, you have to understand, why do people vote for Barack Obama for the same way that they vote for... people vote for Barack Obama in the same reason that people become Bill Maher fans. It's the exact same dynamic. Voting for Barack Obama means that you're a good person and you're a smart person, because Obama is good and he's smart. He's the smartest guy ever to sit in the White House. He's the smartest man who's ever been in politics, ever. He's the smartest guy ever in politics. And I support him. That makes me smart. Also, he's black. You may not have noticed it, but it's true. He's black, and because he's black, and because there's never been a black president, because there's been a history of genuine prejudice against blacks in America, by me voting for him, I'm not only smart because I voted for the smart guy, I'm also good because I voted for the black guy. Now, if it turns out that the black guy is actually not very smart at all and is in fact worse for black people than many white people would be, then all of a sudden your reasons for voting for Barack Obama go out the window, right? Right? So that's where you have to go. You have to go, yeah, okay, he's black. Terrific. Terrific. What's best for black people in America? This is not the guy. What's so smart about him? Oh, he's smart. He's really... What makes you say he's smart? He delivers a good speech. I deliver a good speech. That's no evidence I'm smart. I happen to write my speeches. That's the difference between Barack Obama and myself. And I could find somebody with a definite substandard IQ who could read off a teleprompter, and I could have somebody with a 90 IQ read physics, and I mean high-level physics, astrophysics, off a teleprompter, and they'd sound just as smart as a physicist. But that doesn't mean they came up with it. It doesn't mean that's them. So the question is, what makes you think he's so smart? Just because he's articulate? Have you heard him without a teleprompter? He's no good without a teleprompter. He can't speak without a teleprompter, which is why he has to have a teleprompter when he talks to the third grade. So what other evidence do you have that he's smart? Is it his academic records? They're sealed. Isn't that interesting? Why would they do that, by the way? Do you ever wonder about that? Do you ever wonder why Barack Obama's academic records are sealed? If he's getting straight A's and is the smartest guy ever in the history of the world to be president? I'll tell you something. If I was getting straight A's in college, I'd make that part of my campaign speech. I'd broadcast those things all over the world. It'd be like, come to BillWhittle.com and find out Bill's incredible 4.0 average and everything. I didn't have a 4.0 average and everything. So, what evidence do you have that he's smart? Well, he went to Harvard. George Bush went to Harvard. And George Bush also went to Yale. So since Bush went to Harvard and Yale, does that mean that George Bush is smarter than Barack Obama, who only went to Harvard? Well, Bush got C's in Harvard. Okay. C in Harvard is pretty impressive. What did Obama get in Harvard? Oh, I remember now. We don't know. We're not allowed to know. We're not allowed to know what he got in Harvard. Here's another thought for you there, Barack Obama, smartest guy in the whole wide world. He was chairman of the president or whatever of the Harvard Law Review. Remarkable. Can I see some of his opinions? Some of his law opinions? No. Why is that? Why wouldn't the guy who's the smartest guy who's ever been in the White House, why wouldn't his legal opinions writing for the Harvard Law Review be an imperishable gift to the future of this country? Why wouldn't this be something that we should get down on bended knee and put on scrolls and hand to other Americans on a red satin pillow? Why is that kind of wisdom not on display? It's because he didn't write any opinions. He didn't write any law reviews when he was the president of the Harvard Law Review. He's the only president of the Harvard Law Review not to write legal opinions. Why do you think that is? I can tell you why it is. It's because he was brought into Harvard because of other people doing the same thing that you've done, talked about how smart he is, when really he's not the smartest guy. He's just the blackest guy. You want to get it down to brass tacks, that's what it comes down to. He's articulate, he can give a speech. They brought him into Harvard, and instead of being surrounded by 110 IQs now, all of a sudden this guy with an IQ of 108, somewhere in that ballpark, maybe 115, I'll give him that, whatever. Now he's not surrounded by guys with an IQ of 110, 120. Now he's surrounded by guys with IQs of 30, 140. Okay? Now he is, now he has to deliver. Excuse me one second. Now he has to deliver. So what happens when he has to deliver? He wrote some law reviews, and Harvard didn't publish them because they were evidence of how puerile and silly he is, and just how ordinary and mundane he is. There you go. So the question is, you know, we have to confront this. We have to deal with it. And the reason I bring it up here, Fernando, in answer to your question, is because the ACA rollout is something that people couldn't ignore. And what they couldn't ignore was that this had been botched. And the problem with it being botched is it's been botched in a historically monumental way. And how can it be possible that the smartest guys in the whole country who are going to handle this whole healthcare thing for us could have botched it so badly? Oh, I see. I see. They're not really that smart. People start wondering. You want the guys in charge of your daughter's kidney operation? They can't even run a website. Apparently, we found out today, this afternoon, that they expected peak traffic to be 1,500 people at any given time. 1,500 people. Remember, there's 300 million people have to hit this website at some point or another. They couldn't handle more than 1,500 people simultaneously. Truth Revolt, which just got started, handles double that. And they built that thing for $5,000. You know, there you go. It demolishes his credibility, and now he's going to apologize. Okay, what are you going to do when he screws up your daughter's kidney operation? You going to apologize for that too? Look, what they're going to do is they're going to say, well, he apologized for the healthcare rollout. Fantastic. Still doesn't work. How did they get the bill? Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Oh, how am I kidding? Millions, tens of millions, certainly tens of millions, maybe even hundreds of millions of dollars are now being spent on a Canadian company that failed in Canada. They tried this in Canada, and it failed. It didn't work. Their website went down for the Canadian healthcare system, so they tried it here. Do you know why? Because of political connections to Michelle Obama and Valerie, what's her name? Oh, golly. You know the one. Jarrett. So, there you go. Got to attack these people. You just got to hit them. You got to hit them everywhere. You got to call them out. It's corruption. The reason it failed was because of incompetence and corruption. Incompetence and corruption. We're not going to have any incompetence and I can't say there's not going to be any incompetence or corruption in the Whittle administration. I'll just say that to the degree that we find ourselves doing something incompetently, we'll learn from our mistakes, and to the degree that we find we're doing something corrupted, we're going to fire that person. And if it turns out the person doing something corrupt is the President of the United States, you should fire him too. As a matter of fact, I'll resign. So there you go. Moving on. Let's see here. Ian McLaren says, or Ian McLaren, had the fourth ranked question. Who is your favorite founding father and why? And I'm going to go with Gouverneur Morris on this one. Only because he doesn't get any recognition at all. He doesn't get any recognition at all. And I'll add Tom Paine to that list in a minute. Gouverneur Morris, as I mentioned in the legislation thing on the virtual presidency, is the guy who was in charge of the Committee of Style, for Style. And he was the guy, a framer, I guess, rather than a founder. But he was one of the guys who basically had to take these complex ideas that were how to operate this machine and reduce it to the kind of language where every American could understand it. He wrote it so that anybody in this country could understand the Constitution. He figured if it's going to be ruled by the people and the people can't understand the rules, then the whole theory goes out the window. So Gouverneur Morris was a writer, and he wrote, "We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice." That was his sentence. Thomas Jefferson didn't write that. No one else did. That was him. Of the original founders, I guess he was a framer. Of the original founders, I'm going to go with Tom Paine on this. And again, I'm going to go with Paine because you have to understand that it doesn't matter how good the ideas are. It only matters if the good ideas are put into reality, if they're put into play, into action. If you can have these spectacularly wonderful, marvelous, incredibly grand ideas. It's like having a terrific, supremely capable presidential candidate. If the guy doesn't get elected, or the woman, then it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how great they would have been or how great they could have been. So I'm saying that Thomas Paine, probably more than anybody, ensured the success of the revolution by laying the intellectual and the emotional foundation. He is the person whose common sense pamphlets literally changed the minds of the American people enough so that they would not only agree to the fact that something needed to be done and something needed to be changed, but he also got people to the point where they felt strongly enough about it that they were ready to die for it. They were ready to go out with their muskets and get shot dead by the most powerful military force in the world. Shot dead by them. So it was only through Paine laying the foundation that people became volunteers in the American Army, in the Continental Army, not because they were personally acquainted with the virtue of George Washington or because they thought that Benjamin Franklin was an interesting but if eccentric old scientist, or that Thomas Jefferson was a grand-looking guy who had a great ability to turn a phrase. They went and joined the Constitutional Army. The Continental Army, because they'd been outraged enough and had been given enough of an alternative, so that they felt that there was a reason to go and fight and die and go through all this trouble in the first place. And that's Thomas Paine. That's mostly Paine. I mean, Paine didn't come up with a machine to fix things. Paine said, here's the problem, and here's what we want. We want liberty, and we want freedom. And he put it in enough of an emotional way so people could connect with it emotionally. And that's a two-part thing, right? You really have to set up some hate and some love. You have to set up a hatred of the existing system that is great enough for your anger to motivate you to go out and grab that rifle. But that's not enough. No one's going to go out and fight to defeat something and not know what's coming. And at the same time, he had to, at least on some informal level, paint a picture of what the future could look like if we went to this trouble, if we took this risk. If we take this risk to overthrow this great evil, first of all, you have to create the evil. You have to paint it. And I don't mean create it out of whole cloth. It's already there. But you have to make the case against the king and all of the outrages of the British. Anger people. Get them angry enough to go out and fight. And then at the same time, you have to go out and give them something to fight for rather than fight against. And that vision of what this country could be, this vision of human freedom and prosperity and liberty, is what it's worthwhile. So I think Tom Paine doesn't get anything like the credit that he deserves, Ian. I think it may be prejudice in the sense that we're both in the same line of work. But there you go. So moving on to the next one. Here's a fifth top-rated question from Anthony Casillo, who writes, do you believe that Jesus Christ is who he said he is? I don't know. That's my answer. I don't know. I've got to be careful about heading into this world where I give you all of this kind of sugar coating, because I understand what the question is. And the last thing I want to do is give you this kind of, confectionery about, well, he had an incredible man, incredible teachings, his incredible philosophy, incredible life, and so on and so forth, so on. And, that's true. That's certainly true. I mean, that's kind of I think that's the minimum of what he was, right? The minimum of what he was a man who had, again, profound compassion, but at the same time, a profound set of standards. Isn't that really it? I mean, isn't that kind of our problem? I'll get back to where you're going with this, but isn't that kind of our problem today? Is that the Republicans have the sense of standards and that the liberals have the sense of compassion? Or at least that's how we're portrayed anyway. Don't you understand the power of putting the two of these things together, the standards and the compassion, when you show people that, you might think that giving somebody poor a bunch of money for the rest of their life is going to stop making them poor, but it doesn't. It guarantees that they're going to be poor forever. So you look at the philosophy of Christianity and the magnitude of the leap of it. The leap, people not long before the appearance of Christ, most people were, by every measure of their behavior, simply animals with language. The level of morality and baseness before monotheism and the coming of Israel, of Judaism, I should say, were animals. You're just basically animals. Men were having sex with everything. Women were sold as property. Children were worked to death and just abandoned on hillsides if we didn't like the sex of them or anything. There's certainly that, obviously. But like I said, I know that's spun candy, cotton candy for people who won't face up to the question. And the answer to the question is, Anthony, I don't know. I don't know. I'd love to tell you I did know, but I don't. I'd like to believe that he was who he said he was. On some level, on some important level, the act of believing who he said he was makes him who he said he was. In other words, if you believe in the divinity of Jesus Christ and that divinity lives inside you, then some degree of divinity has been, in fact, translated to you, whether he was divine or not. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how else to answer you honestly than to say I don't know. I hope so, but I don't know. I do know that that virtually everything about this country is based on this idea. Is based on this fundamental idea of divinity. It's based on the idea that there is an internal constraint on our behavior and an internal spark of our inspiration, and that this lives inside all of us, and that it's not a question of following the rules, and it's not just a question of obeying the priests. It's something that is inherent in all people, and if we listen to it, it's there, and if we choose not to, it's not. So I think, I don't know. I hope someday I do. But that's the honest answer, and that's where I'm going to have to leave it. So moving on to Michelle Tongyai, who asks, okay, we all know about your theory on aliens, for you've been asked that before, and maybe you've been asked this before also, but not since I've been listening. What is your theory on the supernatural? Do you believe in the paranormal? If so, any experience with the paranormal or supernatural? I think that there is a chance that there is a paranormal or supernatural existence, but I do not think that there is any evidence at all that that reality has intruded on our world. So what I mean to say by that is, I have something of an understanding of 10th dimensional. I mean, I have the understanding that a dog has understanding watching TV, but I do have some understanding of higher dimensional spaces, and I have an understanding that it's entirely possible that this reality that we perceive here together, certainly possible, not impossible, it's 100% certain that we're seeing the world through a cocktail straw, that we don't see any of the reality, we only see shadows upon shadows upon shadows. In other words, I think time is baked into the universe. I think that we're basically three-dimensional objects moving through four-dimensional space. We can't perceive the four dimensions of space. But I think that everything that has been built is already built. And that doesn't mean that there's no free will, by the way. I think your free will was baked into it. When did that happen? What do you mean? When was it created? It's always been there. Well, it can't always have been there. It can. How long will it be there? Forever. How do you know? Because time doesn't exist. Once you begin to get this, most theoretical physicists have a real mathematical problem with time existing, and they really don't deal with time in the way that we think about it. It's a perception issue for us. So where I'm dancing around here with all this is to say that I'm willing to accept that there are elements of the supernatural, including a creator, completely. Because one of the reasons I got to be much more open-minded about the idea of a creator was because I can create things. I can create things out of nothingness, and I don't mean just ideas either. I can have an impact on the world using my brain and using my eyes. And the reason I say that is because we know for a fact that when we observe certain things, when we try to observe the location or the position or the speed of an electron, by measuring one, we lock out the other. By observing things, we change them. It's one of the fundamental precepts of quantum theory, which has been experimentally proven to be at least part of the picture, certainly not the entire picture, but at least the part of the picture that quantum looks at is predictable. It has a predictive value, which means it's true. So when we do an experiment where we pass a beam of light through a set of different slits, you may find this hard to believe, but it's absolutely true. If it's observed, it turns out one way. And observed by a camera, it turns out one way. If it's not observed, it turns out a different way. It changes the result by looking at it. So if I can change the result of an experiment like that, if I can literally alter reality by observing it, then who am I to say that there's not a creature so far beyond my cognitive abilities as I am above a bacteria that can't have orders of magnitude, if not infinitely greater ability to affect reality. If I can observe an experiment and by observing it change the outcome of that experiment through the act of observing, through the ability to set up the experiment, then who am I to say that some creature with an infinitely greater mental and intellectual ability cannot simply imagine the universe whole, and there it is? How can I say that's out of the question? This is why I no longer under any circumstances, put myself in the atheist camp where I spent most of my life. I realized the arrogance of it is so unbelievable to me. There are things that we can't explain on the quantum level. We have a model for them, but we can't explain them. We can't say how if we measure the spin of a particle here and these particles were created at the same time that somehow instantaneously across the universe the other particle instantly flips its polarity, but that's what we believe to be true based on experiments. Based on experiments. The experiments show us that there are things that don't make sense that we can't comprehend. So how can you possibly say, oh no, there's no room for God in this world? Well, maybe there's no room for God in a world of 3 dimensions where time is an illusion. But in an 11-dimensional space, it's a pretty big statement to make, don't you think, little flatlander? I think it's a big statement for a little flatlander with a cognitive ability of the size of a cantaloupe filled with gray jelly. I think that's a rather grand statement to make. Not only in an infinite number of universes, but in an infinite number of possible universes. That's a large statement to make. And I think that these people like Richard Dawkins and some of these other guys who are high-level scientists either don't understand science or have an opinion that they're trying to convince on people. But honestly, I really don't understand how they can say in a world of this kind of complexity that it's off the table. Now, with that said, Michelle, I'm willing to say that is not an explanation for the 8th dimension and the 6th dimension and all these other dimensions cannot intrude on our dimension. I don't think there's such things as ghosts. I don't think there's such things as ESP. I don't think there's such things as telepathy. I don't think there's such things as telekinetics. And I think that the many people who have claimed to be providing proof of those things, every one of them has been enthusiastically debunked, 100% debunked. And so it's an interesting kind of a contradiction. I think the word I've heard used before is kingdoms. There's no, I don't believe there's any intrusion into this kingdom of ours from spirits, ghosts, demons, anything like that. I think there's a perfectly fine explanation for virtually all of these things, and for the small percentage that we don't have an explanation for, it just simply means we don't have enough explanation for it. And I'm taken to this point of view by, and I don't mean this to offend anybody personally, but I have been in the company of people who have literally had almost seizures over something that they perceived to be paranormal happening to them in the moment. And I would look at this and I'd simply say, that's simply this. I think I told you guys before, I mentioned the time I was up at the observatory, Miami, Southern Cross Observatory at the Miami Planetarium, which is already likely bulldozed over, will be shortly. But anyway, and we looked up, somebody pointed out, we saw a squadron of UFOs flying overhead. We saw 7 or 8 or 9 perfect ovals in perfect formation, flying in a V formation directly over our head, wavering slightly side to side, but generally keeping the V formation. Ovals, ghostly gray lights floating in formation over the city. And people were having a religious experience. They were crying and tears streaming down their faces. And one person, wasn't me, I wish it had been me, one person basically said, they're geese. I said, what do you mean they're geese? He said, look carefully, can't you see? Geese have white bellies, black necks, black wings, but white stomachs. And when the light comes from the city below, that white light reflects off the stomach but not off the black. And he said, if you look really carefully, you can see their wings and their neck. And if you looked really carefully, you could. But if you don't look really carefully, you just see these white ovals that look further away than they really are, because these things are only, 100 feet above our heads. So, I see people reacting to things that if somebody hadn't been there to say that, these people would have believed for the rest of their lives that they saw it. I started a essay called Magic. We're getting eject online too. Don't worry, we'll have all that stuff come back. But it was one of my eject essays, and I basically started it by saying, when I was 6 years old, I saw a leprechaun, because I did see a leprechaun. I was coming back from my dad's hotel. I was in the backseat of my car with my mom. I'm driving up the hill, and I see this little rock, and I see a little green guy sitting there up against it with his little green waistcoat and his smoking his little pipe and a little green hat. And I screamed at her. She thought I'd been run over. I got out of the car, ran over to the rock. He disappeared down into his little tunnels. I know leprechauns have tunnels, and they keep their gold down there. And it took me about 5-10 minutes of poking around there before my mom could finally wrangle me back into the car, drove me home. The instant I got home, I got on my bike, went right back to the hotel, and hung around that rock for a couple hours trying to find the leprechaun. And I remember looking for leprechauns for 3 or 4 days, to the point where my mom and dad actually had to go buy plastic leprechauns and kind of leave them around the house just to give me something to find. Now, did I really see that leprechaun? No. I can't rule it out. I can't really rule out that, but no. Had I seen Darby O'Gill and the Little People 3 weeks earlier or 2 days earlier? As a matter of fact, I think I probably had. It was a vision. If you all close your eyes right this second, you just close your eyes right now, and I describe something to you. Let's say I describe a German Shepherd, but instead of it being brown and black, it's absolutely blue. It's royal blue. It's a nice... No, you know what? Forget that. Make it navy blue. It's a dark navy blue. German Shepherd, dark navy blue. Imagine 2 wings that are about the length of the dog itself coming out on either side, wings of an eagle, and in the place of his tail, I want you to imagine that he doesn't have a tail, but he's got a pitchfork. He's got a long stick ending in a pitchfork, a 4-pointed pitchfork, just like the guy is holding in American Gothic. So got it? It's a it's a German Shepherd, navy blue, with wings about the size of the dog coming up from middle of its backbone, and in place of a tail, it's got a pitchfork with 4 curved tines on it. Where'd that picture come from? I saw it clear as day. I saw it. I just this second saw it. Where'd it come from? I made it up in my head. And the whole idea of a hallucination is that when your internal vision is imprinted on the external world, you can then begin to see things that aren't there. And that kind of thing I'm highly confident of. Not 100% confident, but I'm highly confident. And to give you an idea of what highly confident means, I will give you... I don't know what the numbers are, but Bigfoot is marginally more likely to really exist than the Loch Ness Monster. The Loch Ness Monster does not exist under any circumstances. All the photographic evidence of the Loch Ness Monster were proven to be fakes, and they're just a ripple, or a wave. But the reason the Loch Ness Monster doesn't exist is because, number one, there's no fish in that lake, and there's nothing for the Loch Ness Monster to eat. Number two, plesiosaurs, which people claim they are, it's the last surviving dinosaur. What did it mate with? It doesn't live very long. What did it mate with? Well, maybe there's another one down there. Well, there is no down there. We know what the bottom of the lake looks like. Plesiosaurs are air breathers. They have to breathe air, which means they have to come to the surface, which means that if the Loch Ness Monster were real, we'd have about as much experience as we have with other real creatures, like whales, for example. Whales live underwater, and they have to come up and breathe air. And we know they're whales, and we have millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of feet of footage of whales because they're real, because they come up and they breathe, and then they go back down again. No one has that kind of footage of the Loch Ness Monster because the Loch Ness Monster doesn't exist. Why do I say the Loch Ness Monster is less real than Bigfoot? Why there's a somewhat larger possibility of Bigfoot? Is because there's nothing that disqualifies Bigfoot in the way that it disqualifies the Loch Ness Monster. But I don't believe in Bigfoot. There's no skeletons. There's no nothing. Bigfoot doesn't exist either, in my opinion. Don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But he's not ruled out logically in the way that Loch Ness Monster is. The Loch Ness Monster is just ruled out by just logic. You know, they find the wreckage of the flying saucers in oh my gosh, sometimes I just lose stuff that is just so right in front of my head. The town in New Mexico where they allegedly had the plane, the saucer crashed. It'll come. You guys will give it to me in 10 seconds, and I'll get it 50 times, and then there you go. Roswell, in Roswell, New Mexico. So. You know, they show some wreckage. What do they show? They show some pieces of aluminum foil. You know, this is a vehicle that can hover through anti-gravity, and presumably it hit a mountain. It's rather poor navigation, you would think. I'm a pilot and I fly Cessnas and other airplanes. I don't hit mountains. Some people do, I guess. So they've got this vehicle that has the ability to levitate and fly at virtually unlimited speeds, clear out of the atmosphere, at least out of the atmosphere to where the mothership is, and it crashes into the side of a hill or crashes into the ground, and what they find is tinfoil. That's it. Where's the earth-shattering kaboom? Where's the whatchamacallit something generator? Where's the antimatter core? Where's the anti-gravity devices? Where's the bathroom? Where's the remains of the toilet? Where's the steering console? Where are the buttons? Where's the aliens? Where are the bodies? You got a half of a box full. You know, you got a garbage bag full of aluminum foil, and people want to believe that that's the wreckage from a flying saucer. How badly do you want to believe that for that conclusion to take place? You fly something that's far. You know, airplanes are like birds. They're very light and they're very, very flimsy in terms of construction. They're very strong. They're very ingeniously developed, but there's not a lot of substance to a Cessna. You know, they're mostly hollow, basically. You fly a hollow Cessna into the side of a hill, And you're going to end up with real wreckage. You're going to find the engine, and you're going to find the control column, and you're going to find the hinges, and you're going to find bodies, and you're going to find things that won't just turn into aluminum foil. Wheels, high-density things like wheel hubs, brake calipers. You're going to find all this stuff. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Because if it did exist, we'd have decent evidence of it. So I can't rule flying saucers out. I can just say they're so unlikely that you might as well rule them out. That to keep them alive is using up brain cycles that are wasted. Carl Sagan actually had this really down. I mean, he really had this down. He had down this example of special pleading, but his conclusion, I thought, really just took the wind out of me. He was talking about this special pleading that people do, and he talked about the story of a dragon. He said, I have a dragon in my garage. Let's say I'm trying to convince you that I have a dragon in my garage. Okay, I'd like to come over and see the dragon. Well, I can let you come over, but he's an invisible dragon. Really? Yep. Okay, well, then I'm going to sprinkle powder on the ground, on the floor of your garage, and then we'll look for the dragon footprints since he's invisible. Well, he's also an incorporeal dragon, which means he doesn't actually occupy physical space. I see. Fire-breathing dragon? Oh, yeah, that's how you know he's a dragon. Well, then why don't we go in there with a couple of very sensitive temperature measuring devices and measure the heat of his dragon breath flame? Isn't the inside of your garage all scarred up by that? No, his dragon breath flame is actually non-thermal. And Sagan went through a couple more steps on this, but this is the conclusion that he reached, and this is the one that really knocks you out. So he says, all right, so what's the difference then between an invisible, non-corporeal dragon with heatless flame and no dragon at all? What's the difference between those two? There is no difference. That's really where you get me, right? So, what's the difference? What's the value of believing in flying saucers that don't leave wreckage, that don't have any credible photographic evidence, that don't have any impact on our world in any way, and no UFOs at all? There is no difference. So why not just make your life easier and face the facts? And the final thing I'll say on this one, Michelle, is that once or twice in my life I've been called on to be the advocate of reason and had like a debate with flying saucer guys. And here's what really makes me convinced that I'm sure that I'm right on this one. They'll trot out their best evidence, and I'll look at it, and I'll figure out what it is, and I'll say, okay, what you've got there is not, in fact, the space shuttle tethered to a satellite. You've got a T-bar that's turned upside down, and these little things that are floating through it. It's in the water. It's turned upside down. If you look at it upside down, you can see it's one of these little things, and the little pieces of debris are floating through the water. And by the way, if that tether is 10 miles long, according to your estimate, it's got to be about a mile and a half thick. So no, that's not that. And what they say is, okay, well maybe, but what about this? And then they trot out the next thing. You debunk that, and they say, okay, well what about this? And then they bring out something else, and you debunk that. And then they bring out things that that they know are false. For example, he showed me a creature, kind of an odd, like looking kind of weird sort of things with notches, like hovering over the horizon. And I said, that's really pushed, isn't it? And that zoomed in. He said, yeah. I said, can you show it to me unzoomed? And he did, and it was a bird. And when you take a digital camera and you blow something up to that degree, then all of a sudden you get all these internal things happen with the way the iris is constructed. But when you zoom back, it's a bird. It's obviously a bird. There's no question about it. It's a bird. You see that? It's like, what, you mean, where? Behind the bird? No, it's a bird. And so they would keep moving the goalposts. They keep moving them. They move them and move them and move them and move them. And if you don't have a goalpost that'll stand, then you've got something wrong with your theory, baby. So that's my answer to that. Moving on now to Brandon Eiler. Conservatives won the vote in Virginia. How do we get libertarians to get their heads out of their ampersands and stop pulling the lever for Democrats? The libertarians didn't vote for Democrats. They just made sure that the conservative didn't win. Yeah, it was frustrating, Brandon. I'm with you on that one. Very frustrating. What I want to know is, well, first of all, it looks like there's pretty good evidence that the libertarian candidate was bundled by an Obama supporter, was put there by an Obama supporter. So what I want to know is why our conservative candidate and our Republican Party didn't make that the last second 3-day bomb of ad blitzes. So on and so on. The libertarian candidate is sponsored by a person who bundles for Barack Obama, who is the most anti-libertarian creature in the world. What possible advantage do you think Barack Obama and his money handler would have by introducing a candidate into the race? He's not a real libertarian. Why do you think he's doing that? He's trying to get you to give up your power and hand power over to the progressives who just ruined your health care insurance. How hard is this to do? I don't know. Doesn't seem hard to me. But look, somebody's going to have to do something about this split between conservatives and libertarians. And I think on a lot of levels, look, I'm a conservative. I have a lot of libertarian tendencies, and I seem like maybe I'm getting more libertarian every day. But libertarianism has one thing going for it that conservatives and Republicans don't have, and that is they haven't had time to completely squash and tarnish the name yet, which is kind of this whole common sense resistance argument, which I'm going to get to in these firewalls, so I can't really go into too much of this right now. But basically, the GOP didn't support this guy. The GOP is terrified of the Tea Party because the Tea Party means the end of the GOP establishment. And I've come to realize that the people who are career politicians of either party there's something wrong with them. I can say this with a fair amount of certainty, that most of the people in Washington who are Republicans, certainly it's true for the elected people, it's true for their staffs, and it's true for some of these think tanks, that they're perfectly happy staying in Washington out of power so long as they stay in Washington in office. Because as long as they're in office, they get all the perks. As long as they're in office, they get all the, Scotch bottles appear at their door, and they get taken out for dinner, and they get flown on this junket and that junket, and all this other stuff. What difference does it make if they're out of power, right? I mean, as long as they're getting what they want. It's all about the kind of person that goes into politics in the first place. And the Tea Party doesn't book that kind of thing. Book or brook? I don't really remember. But in any event, we tend to say, country's screwed up, we're going to send people there for 2 years, change it, and we're going to leave. And they fear the Tea Party because the Tea Party, unlike the progressives, which have to manufacture and pay people to get on buses to go to protests and print up all their signs and all their shirts for them, unlike them, the Tea Party is in fact an actual honest-to-God popular movement of the people. So, I don't know. But I think the answer is probably going to be, if there is an answer, it's probably going to be something along the lines of, hey, why don't we look how things look in the fall of 2016 after the conventions? Now, why don't we just agree to say that whoever's got the largest percentage of the vote, let's say we have it's off the sake of the argument, let's say that Hillary Clinton for the Democrats is polling 40%, and the conservative candidate is polling 37%, and the libertarian candidate's polling 23%, or whatever. Why don't the conservatives and the libertarians just agree that after the conventions, after the last of the 3 conventions are over, whoever's got the biggest number among the conservatives and the libertarians, why don't we agree that that guy's going to be the president and that the libertarian guy will be the vice president? And then we'll have a conservative libertarian or a conservatarian ticket, and the conservatarian ticket then will just simply destroy them. Why don't we do that? And why don't we make an agreement that, if we have to combine these two, then we will eliminate one plank from the Republican thing that the libertarians hate, and the libertarians will eliminate one plank that the conservatives hate, and that'll be the compromise, and we'll get together, and you're going to be vice president. No guarantee who wins. Maybe the libertarian will have a bigger number. Why don't we get together like that and shake hands and understand that the amount of differences we have with these miserable control-freak state lunatics that are trying to take over the world and are succeeding at it, that the differences we have with them are, 98% of our differences are with them, and 2% of our differences are with each other. Why don't we go out and win, and then sort out just exactly how much of this control state we're going to burn down? Why don't we just win and get some power, and then together, you and I, conservative and libertarian, will sit down and figure out where we're going to stop burning down these walls that encage us, and just how many chains we're going to unfetter ourselves from. Because we're going to unfetter ourselves from 98% of them, and maybe the Republicans don't want to go the final 2 chains, or maybe the libertarians don't like this or don't like that. Why don't we just agree that there's 98% of this crap that we hate needs to be burned down? Let's go burn that down, and then when we've gotten rid of 98% of our shackles, you and I together can argue about what we do with the final 2% of our shackles once we're free again. Remember that? That's what I would do. And I'd put those rules in advance, right? Fair is fair, right? I'm not saying the Republicans are going to draw more votes than the Libertarians, and I'm not going to say which side I'm going to campaign on. I am going to say that these two people together have so much in common that this business about splitting the vote is, why don't we just shake hands on it like grown-ups, like adults, at the beginning of the game, which will be the beginning of the 2016 campaign, at the beginning of the game. Why don't we publicly state in a combined platform, the conservatives in the Republican Party, the Republicans, in other words, and the Libertarian Party, and the Constitution Party, why don't we all agree in advance, with a handshake, publicly? We don't know which candidates are going to succeed. We don't know who's going to break out of the pack. We don't know which party's going to have the most votes in the end. We don't care. But what we'll do is we'll agree that the president will be the person who has the highest number of polls when all of our conventions are over and each party has its own candidate, right? Or maybe just as we go into them. Why don't we just agree that the number one vote getter is going to be the president, the number two vote getter is going to be the vice president, and the number three vote getter, so we can get the Constitutional Party in there, is going to be Secretary of State. It's a deal. It's a contract. It's a contract. It's not just a deal. It's a contract. We agree. We agree. We agree that the number one threat to this country are these statists, these out-of-control statists who are going to put us all in shackles, and they're going to ruin this economy more than they already have. And we all three together agree on 98, 95, 94% of the stuff, so we together are going to make this a legal binding contract between the Republican Party, the Libertarian Party, and the Constitutional Party. That the number one slot will go to this guy, the number two slot will go to that guy, number three slot will go to that guy. We don't have to campaign together. We don't have to agree in the primaries. We can all go out there and try to win all our votes. Everything's fantastic. You know, maybe the Libertarians will surprise us. Wouldn't that be awesome? Libertarians have the highest number of things. It's going to be a Libertarian president with a Republican vice president. That's the deal. Boy, they wouldn't know what to do out of that, would they? They would not know what to do. No. Maybe I'll postulate that. We get enough people signing up at billwhittle.com, I might have the resources to start a common sense resistance political party, and then we'll get out there and we'll see if we can't whip these people. But I don't have the kind of money that the Clintons have, let's say. I give speeches. I gave 25 of them this year, and I wasn't booking $250,000 per, like Madam President did. Alex Flynn, I got a dinner appointment. I got time. We might be able to do a full 90 minutes here. Alex Flynn says, Bill, how long do you think you would last if you did a filibuster? I'm glad I got to that, Alex, because I know you've been asking me that in the comments stream like every single week, but it wasn't one of the questions we've taken, so now it is. I could do... Well, look, there's no question I would not be limited. I wouldn't run out of things to say. I would be limited by my ability to literally speak, I think. You know, when you speak for a long time, I think I've spoken probably for about 3 hours on, I've hosted Rusty Humphrey shows on and off. That's with 8-minute breaks. And at the end of 3 hours, you can start to feel it. And I've had days where I've been doing a lot of speaking, I can start to feel it. But I think, look, I could keep up commentary and talk about things. I won't have to read a phone book. I can do this all day and all night. I can do this long past the point where I can no longer stay awake. A couple of no-dose tablets, you know, I could do 48 hours. I don't think there'd be any problem at all doing 48 hours. And it'd be a damn good 48 hours, too, I don't mind telling you. I could make it a theatrical 48 hours. And it'd be fun. And I think it'd be great overnight television. By the way, we need another show like Red Eye. We need a late-night TV show. Red Eye needs to move up. Red Eye beats MSNBC's best shows at 3 in the morning. So, yeah, be entertaining. And you know what? Ultimately, I think the ultimate thing we're looking for here in political candidates and filibusters and things like that is we got to have somebody who really just doesn't want the job, right? Should that be your primary consideration? You don't want the job? I guess you could probably find people acting coy, but I bet you could really find people who genuinely, actually, truly didn't want the job. And by saying the job, I don't mean meeting the people. The meeting the people part would be fun. I do that all the time in my real job. I love meeting people. And I like having discussions with people, and I like listening to people. I learn from people. But I don't want to sit there, you know, in these offices and listen to, my God, especially in Congress. Can you imagine just sitting in that room all day and listen, well, now I would like to propose that this amended 16, Chapter 9, subsection E4, Paragraph 2 is amended to read, in place of the former, now reads in the former place, and you vote on, you know, for the love of God, please, somebody just shoot me in the head and get me out of this thing. Who wants that job? Who wants that job? My God. I don't know. I like the part I said earlier about now you're at the point where you have to run for president of the United States is the only way to defend yourself against these control state swine. Did you just call Quit a swine? Yeah, I did. Kind of. Gosh, she is. Two to go. Gail Moore says, hey, just wondering when you were going to get the Advice to Young Men out. I have a grandson that's 2 years old. Think it'll be out in time? Ha-ha! Ha. Yes, I think it'll be out in time. This last afterburner I did called Silent Saturday convinced me I have something to say about this. I really do think there's a lot of things that need to be said to young men out there, and I don't want to exclude young girls, because probably 90% of the stuff I have to say is probably, well, no, that's not true, actually. 50% of the stuff I'd have to say is equally applicable to young girls. But most of the advice I would give to young men would be practical pieces of advice on how to be a man. And I'm not saying women can't be men in the degree. When I talk about a man now, I'm not talking about a gender. I'm talking about a model. I'm talking when I think about that, he handled that like a man. I've seen many women handle things like a man. When I say like a man, to me that means in a way of honor and integrity and calmness and strength and duty. So certainly women can learn how to do that, but I don't know. I was going to say don't think. I don't know. I do think there's no question that there are different biological imperatives wired into us based on our sex and our gender, and our gender and our attractiveness to other people are different things. As you know, there are people who are homosexually inclined who don't exhibit. Take a gay male, for example. Many gay males. The definition of a gay male is a male who's attracted to another male, but many gay males have extremely feminine gender-type qualities, but there are some that don't. So sexual attractiveness is separate from your gender, from your the way you identify with the people, with other people. But I can't address any of those things just because I don't know about them. I don't know enough about them. But I do know how to be a boy, and I'm learning how to be a man. And I don't think you ever stop learning that. Certainly some of it was put into my head at an early enough age. But I would love to do it, Gail, and I've got to get this stuff out, and then we'll take it. We'll take it from there. It's not top of my list, but I'd like to do it very much. And Samuel Hendricks has the last written question, but then I do want to get to one more issue that was on the list, and I guess I didn't print it. Samuel Hendricks says, you mentioned you were friends with Glenn Beck. Would you ever consider working for The Blaze? I'm actually not friends with Glenn Beck, Samuel. I don't know if I misspoke. I suspect I didn't. I talked about other people who I was friends with. I've known, look, I'm not close friends with anybody, any of them. Of all the pundits out there, the one I know probably the best is Glenn Reynolds. I've met many, many times personally. I've introduced Mark Levin in person several times. I've spent several afternoons or events with Ann Coulter, a couple. I interviewed Michelle Malkin every week for several weeks, if not a couple months, at PJTV. So I know these people better than Glenn Beck. I've never met Glenn Beck. But Glenn has run my stuff on his show, and I certainly would work at The Blaze. I'd work at The Blaze at the drop of a hat. I'd like The Blaze to run these virtual presidency things, and I'm about to send him an email asking him if he'll do it. So yeah, I'd like to work with everybody. And the other thing I don't understand, given the amount of destruction that's going on here in this country, is I don't understand these. I never know how to pronounce the word. Is it internecine? Is that the word I'm looking for? These fratricidal kind of conflicts where people on the same team are attacking each other. Feuds, these giant feuds between guys on our team. We don't have bigger things to do. I don't have that much of an ego. I don't have that much of an ego to have a feud with anybody. I don't need to feud with Glenn Beck. I don't need to feud with Dennis Miller. I don't need to feud with Alex Jones, for that matter. They're all, anybody who's for freedom is on my team, and that's pretty much it. That's really pretty much all you need to know about me. You in favor of freedom? Yep, and we'll get along just fine. We'll quibble about the details over a nice single malt scotch some night and a decent steak. And there's one question I didn't print, but it's time for me to go. And it was, when's all the groovy gear going to ship for BillWhittle.com? I think we'll probably be getting it out end of next week. I'm sorry about the delay. There's stuff has to be. We had some delays with the merchandise providers, so we're going to get everything out. I'm hoping at the end of next week. If not, it'll be the beginning of the week after that, except for the DVD, which we are still waiting on. We have compositors. The DVD of the virtual presidency is not in my control. I'm delivering the segments to them as fast as they can. They're turning them around as fast as they can. But we're hoping to have that finished by 2 to 3 weeks at the top end. And then we will, the second they're printed, the second they come off the machine, we ship those babies out separately. So we'll get all that out to you guys as just fast as we can. Thank you very much for your patience on this. We haven't forgotten you. And we got the money in the bank, and we've got the checks written, and we're just literally waiting for the crates of stuff to show up. And I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% sure, we were 100% sure, but there may have been one exception, that all this stuff is American-made. We're using top-quality shirts, and they're American shirts, and I think there's still American mugs that maybe we simply couldn't get what we wanted. But all this stuff is on its way, and it's coming to you now. And if you want to go to billwhittle.com and check on the upper right-hand corner where it says Become a Member, there's a little video there called The Pitch. You can read if you want to. If not, you can click a Become a Member, and we'll put it on your credit card. It's a couple cups of coffee a month. Keeps Starbucks coffee a month. Keeps us in this game, and if we have enough people pitching in, then we're a regular weekly, nightly even TV show. But that's it for the Stratosphere Lounge, episode 46. One more piece of good news, by the way. We are going to have somebody come in and go back through the catalog, working backwards. The reason I waited so long to post the last 4 or 5 was I never made a mark of how many questions I actually took and what the questions were. So I didn't want to post them without the questions. Then I finally realized, look, I'm 6 weeks behind here. So we are going to have somebody go through all of the Stratosphere Lounges, and they're going to put the questions and the timestamp. And they're also going to mark where the really great rants are. So we'll have a little shorthand where you can kind of go out and look at the best of them. But as soon as I hang this thing up, which is going to be in a minute and a half, I've got the questions written down. I'm going to upload it to YouTube tonight, and it will be available this evening. And I'll put a link up for it probably over the weekend. But it should be available on YouTube within an hour at the top end, I would say. And from that point on forward, we'll hopefully just be able to stay on top of it. I just got really behind, and yeah, somebody going to go back through the back catalog. So that's number 46. Number 41 disappeared. I don't know if it was a numbering issue. I don't think we had an issue with losing the recording, but we just couldn't find number 41. I don't know if I just jumped one or what. I suspect not, because I have questions for 41, but 41 is gone. Sorry about that. But this is Stratosphere Lounge, episode 46, coming to you now, concluding from the beautiful studios here in Sherman Oaks, California. I'm going to do something I've never done before here. I'm going to use my bitchin' hue lights, which I can control the color, the brightness, and the temperature on. And I am going to, how do I want to do this? Can you do that? Yes, we'll do a lovely fade to red. And then we'll increase the saturation of the red. Oh, that's horrible. Isn't that just horrible? Horrible. And then we're going to fade it down to black. And we're finally left with this gray ghost image that's coming off of the monitor. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a good evening, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.